History Month and International Women's Day and all this, and with the bursting of spring that we're doing creativity. And I know that whenever I speak on whatever topic it is, I get really excited and say, it's my favorite. Well, this is one of my favorites. And I love this little picture because just the creative force that makes you want to live more, right? There's this creative urge within us that wants to be expressed, and it makes us feel like we can do anything when we connect to it. It reveals to us the amazing joy of life, and creativity is such an integral part of who we are. And so it is your true nature. And so, a big thing happened in my life when I realized that what the spiritual path and what spirituality really was. Because I grew up in a church experience. Well, I thought to be spiritual it meant to be meek, and to be weak, and to be quiet. And you know that doesn't really work for me. That didn't really work for me. That we have to suffer, and there's pain, and we just have to hope that it gets better, And that's why I felt lost for most of my life until all of a sudden I woke up to the fact that spirituality is who we are. Whether anyone who's walking around, again, I'm going to invoke my favorite place to see spiritual growth is Starbucks, but wherever we are, whether you're in Starbucks or not, that's one of the most holiest temples I think there is to see life in action, to see God unfolding, because people who don't even know that they're part of spirit are part of spirit. Our lives are our spiritual paths. And what we do with it is our gift, not only from God, but to God. Oh, I told you the end at the beginning again. That's what I do. So don't leave yet, though. I've got other stuff to share. So the idea is that we are, as we click into that urge within us to express and to create, we are hooking into the divine presence of God. A huge shift happens in our lives when we shift from thinking that life is a random group of events that just happen to us, that we have no control over, and we hope for something good, to realizing that we have a part to play in it, that we actually have a rudder and a motor and are directing that boat somewhere instead of just floating on the ocean in the waves. There's a huge healing that happens when we realize that we have a part to play in it. And not as a victim, not as saying, well, you look what you did, you created this, and blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's about saying, you know what, this is where I am, this is what I'm experiencing, and there's an essence and an energy within me that if I click into, I know I can move in that direction of my dream. I can move in the direction of what my intuition and my heart's telling me is possible for myself. Or maybe as I've shared today, and as I'm realizing that those people who've seen the possibility in me that I couldn't even see, I could go in that direction. Because sometimes we can look at each other and see the possibility and the potential within that you know what, we're so tied up in ourselves we can't even connect with. But there is so much potential within you because you are part of the divine life. And the divine life is that infinite depth of beingness that is the creative force of all things. Everything has been created by this infinite presence, by this infinite wisdom, this endless, timeless, unconditional presence. And by the way, you too. And so when the Bible says you're made in the image and likeness of God, and God is the divine creator, what do you think? You've got to sit on the couch and wait and hope that maybe something will be created in your life? No. You have that potential within you. And as long as you are taking breath, you are creating. And so no, it's not just about being an artist. Because let me tell you, when I try to paint, it's hilarious. And the ladies in the bathroom before service know what singing is, because I was washing my hands singing, and they heard me. And I said, you guys are the only three who are ever going to hear me sing, unless we're in the bathroom together, because that's the only place I'm singing these days, right? So I am not an artist in that way, but I'm creating my life. I am creating in many different ways, and each and every one of us are. And so every time we say, I'm not creative, you're blocking off your relationship to God. You're blocking off your relationship to that divine creative force that wants to give you what it is that you truly want. Sometimes we think, okay, I want my life to go in this direction over there. I can't see how I can get there. There's a big Grand Canyon between me and that. But when we think of, just from the way that we think, the rut of thinking that we are in, and trying to get over there, we have no creative ideas. Well, let me tell you, if you talk to my daughter, there'd be a zip line set up right there to go right across that Grand Canyon, and you'd be there in a second. You could put that thing on and fly over there. You could do whatever you want to get there. There's other creative possibilities. And I have totally just thrown out everything that I wrote to talk to you about today. I'm just telling you that now. So, but that's the idea, is that we end up living in this small-minded place of what's possible. And I think what happens is that we get hypnotized by the situation in the world, by the effect of the world, by what's happening outside around us. We look too far outside to get our feedback. And you know what? The outside world is never going to make you free. The outside world is never going to support you in your growth. Now, it will, in that it's going to push it in. If you actually take what's happening on the outside and say, wait a minute, is that really true? And we go within and we check in and say, wait a minute, is this true for me? Now, it'll work that way. It'll support you that way. But if you're going to look for your peace in the world, if you're going to look for your possibility in the world, if you're going to look for the world to say to you, you know what, you can do it, you are never going to find it. It's only when we deepen our relationship with the divine of our hearts, when we connect to that inner place, where we realize that there's something greater operating within us and through us and as us to support us in going outward. I've been teaching a whole heck of a lot of classes lately, and I can't remember which class it was that I was talking about it, but I was sharing that one of the images that works really well for me is the image of a tree. A tree can only go so far out in the world, its canopy can only go so far out as its roots go deep. So what does that mean for us? It means that I have to be so steeped and so grounded and rooted in my understanding of what God is and how it operates and that it's part of me, that I can go farther out into the world. And so right now, I don't know if you realize it, but the world's kind of coming in on us. And even for my friends who don't have TV and who don't read the news and who don't all of that, they're even shaken these days, you know, because the energetic of what's happening in the world is affecting us, and we have to admit that. That there is something happening in the collective that is affecting us, and whether we're conscious of it or not, it's there. Because we operate on our conscious awareness level, but we also operate on a deeper energetic level, and when things start to shake, it affects us. And so we are being called to go so deep into the root of our truth of what we know. And so if you do not have a spiritual practice every day where you take a couple of moments and you connect to the divine, it's time to do it. If you don't take those breaks during the day to stop and breathe, right now I'm putting my feet in the grass. I'm going in the back. We've gotten rid of a lot of our grass and to be water-wise here, but we've got a couple of patches of grass, and every day I go out and I put my feet in that little patch of grass and in the ground, and remember that I'm connected to something deeper and bigger than I could even imagine. The power and the presence of the one. And so when we can do that, then we can go back out into the world, and when one of our friends is freaking out, it's like, don't touch me, don't breathe on me, we can love them. We can be that place of compassion and love because we are so grounded in knowing who we truly are. Let's see if I have anything else here that I could say to you. I love, I have a couple of my greatest hits today, but one of them is I love, the statement from Einstein said that we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. We have to evolve. We are meant to evolve and to expand and to grow on all levels. And so what's happening in the world is making us do that. We could either hide under the bed with our covers over our head and pretend it's not happening and hope 14 days from now it's all going to be gone, right? Or we could face it and realize that something greater is coming from it. I use the analogy of living in a shack, right? Like our mindset is like a little shack, and the windows are clouded over, you can't see out of it, and it's really tiny, and there's not a lot of space in there, and the door's kind of stuck, and that's our mindset. And that shack keeps us safe, though. And I can understand the desire to want to be safe. Because when times are shaky, and again, I'm not just talking about what's happening with this virus or with the election or with the government or whatever. I'm not talking about just that. But each and every one of us has stuff in our lives that sometimes makes us want to go into that shack. That makes us want to feel safe. That makes us afraid of what's going to happen or what's coming down the pipe. So we go into this little mindset of everything that we've known that keeps us safe, that keeps us comfortable, that keeps us small, right? But there's no growth in that. There's no light in that. You don't see the sunrise from the shack. It's dark, it's dingy, and it only replays, it's like a recycling of your own air. Okay, so I can smell it already. So I didn't realize I was going to go that deep into that analogy, but now I'm having the experience of living in the shack. But that's what happens to us. We stay small. And we do it because we're afraid. We're afraid to be seen as alternative. We're afraid to be seen as strange. We're afraid to come up with new ideas and be laughed at or judged. Oh, those weird people over there at that church, I don't know what they're doing over there. Well, let me tell you, we're all well. I don't know what's happening in other churches. We're not sick. So the idea here is that we need to get out of that shack. We need to get out of that mindset of thinking and into a place of possibility. We need to get curious about what is happening outside of this shack. We need to get curious about how else things could be. Because as soon as we click into curiosity, then we click into our creativity. When we get curious about what possibly could be, that's the pinprick of possibility that God goes, let me show you how it could be. You want to know what's possible for you? Have you ever thought about this? What about this? What about that? You start to have amazing dreams. You start to have visions. All of a sudden you remember the things that you loved when you were a child that you hadn't thought about 40, 50, 60, 80 years, whatever, I don't care. As soon as we start to get curious about, you know what, it could be different. You know what, there's something else happening here. I am safe and supported. There's a presence that is bigger than we are, that loves you so much that it wants your freedom, it wants your wholeness, it wants your health, it wants your vibrance, it wants your unfoldment to happen. We get to have what we want. We get to have those experiences that we've always dreamed of. Now, it might not look exactly like you thought when you were 5. I'm not going to be a princess with big long blonde hair that I thought I was going to be when I was 5. I could be if I wanted to. I don't anymore. But you get the feeling of it. You get the experience of it. It's there for you. It always has been. It's part of your soul's journey and your soul's unfoldment. And we just need to allow ourselves to get out of the disappointment of how things turned out rather than what we thought it was going to be like, to start to create it in the way that we want it to be. So I do believe that we're living in unprecedented times. And you know, whatever realm we're talking about, it seems like the systems are breaking down, right? And things are shaking. And there's a lot of fear. And there are some, and people will come to me and say, but what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And yeah, I know, I get it, I know. Things are not how we would like them to be. But instead of looking at this as a snapshot, instead of looking at this as that one picture of, yeah, look, the world is broken. Somebody said to me once, Reverend Catherine, the world is broken. What are you going to tell me about that? You know? I was like, we live in context. It's not just a snapshot in time. What if we're evolving? What if these things need to actually break down to build up what is possible? What if things need to shake to wake us up enough to actually do what we have been talking about since the 60s? Hello, the generation that's before me, you've been talking about this for a whole heck of a long time, that we are waking up to what's possible. And maybe this is the time when it's happening. Could we get on that train? Doesn't that feel better? Instead of looking at like how horrible it is and we're going to hell in a handbasket and things are whatever, blah, blah, blah. Let's leave some space for God. Maybe this is what needs to take to wake us up. Maybe it's allowing for us to realize, you know what we've been talking about has not been working. And maybe going back to a nostalgic time in the past when it seemed like everything was okay, maybe that's really not the way to go either. Because it really wasn't all that great then either. Right? But what's happening here is that we are waking have to realize that we have a gift to give. That we have this amazing, infinite potential and power that's created the universe, that's guiding us, it's inspiring us, it has all of the ideas and all the possibilities. And when we connect to that energetic of, you know what, giving instead of getting, being a presence instead of a deep hole, then everything's going to change. And maybe we are the ones who have to do that. And we do that by getting out of our own way. We do that by not allowing being hypnotized by the world, by the world of effect. We need to realize that there is a love that's alive within us, and it doesn't want to be received, it wants to be shared. And we have infinite opportunities to do that in creative ways. So that's this rock project. This rock project came up this week. You know, I've heard about it for a while, and I'm so grateful that Jody puts up with me, everybody puts up with me, my crazy ideas last minute and all this stuff. I called her last week and said, hey, let's do rocks and spread them out around the valley. Because you know what? I went to Costco this week. Let me tell you, that was like a battleground. And I got the sense of what the energy that people are holding. And it hurt my heart. I don't want to see people suffering right now. There's nothing really to worry about. We're going to treat and move our feet. We're going to take care of ourselves. But what if we could be the ones to spread the light? What if we could be the ones to set that rock on that place in the mall for that person who is lonely, who is alone, who is feeling like, you know what, I can't even go on anymore. And then there's a rock that says, you can do it on the ground. Just imagine the healing. And so that's what we're doing today, but that's the idea of all the different ways that what we could do. How could we inspire light and love in a dark time? We need to open to creativity, we need to trust the divine, and listen to new ideas that could possibly work. Who's to say they wouldn't? Plato had it right when he said that necessity is the mother of invention. We all know that part of the phrase, right? But it goes on to say a need or problem encourages creative efforts to meet the need or solve the problem. And let me tell you, we are about to get really creative in this world and in this country. We really are. There's some challenges that we are going to face, but I have faith in knowing that there are creative solutions that are coming forward at the same time that the need is coming forward. And maybe it's going to take this amount of shaking for us to build the beloved community. Maybe it's going to take this much of the collective fear for us to wake up and say, wait a minute, am I going to live in this? Is this my life? No, I'm going to adapt, I'm going to open, I'm going to allow the creative inspiration to bring me to where I want to be. What's been shown time and time again is that when we're blocked, our pathway forward isn't clear, something pops up. And let me tell you, it shows up. It shows up all the time in my life. Even this morning, right before service. There was something that I was worried about, and you know what? It showed up. I know God so powerfully alive, not only in my life, but not only in the life of the center, but in your life too. When you are faced with something and you are feeling blocked and you are feeling alone, let me tell you, you are never alone. There is something that loves you so well, and you just gotta listen to it. You just have to listen to it. And so I'm reminded of these stories, and I've told it over and over again, but my favorite one is the Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894. Remember I've told you that one before? The Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894. What was happening is this. The cities were dependent on horses for carriages and transportation, and there were so many horses, and the streets were filled with poop. And they were looking out, and they were saying, you know what? In 15 years, there's going to be 9 feet of poop on London streets. They were really seeing that's what was going to happen with if you take that each horse. And I know this, Ignacio, because I looked it up. Poops 35 pounds of poop a day. Up to 35 pounds of poop a day. Thousands of horses. Okay, so think of the London streets. And then over years, and what was going to happen, and then never mind when the horses were expired, then their carcasses were there too. I mean, it was a very stinky, smelly mess in London and New York at the end of the 1800s. And they were like freaking out. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know what happened? The car was in there. The car was in there. And you know, that's why they, and I also heard that's why they call it horsepower, by the way. Right? That's why they measure car engines and horsepower. And they actually even do the same thing with rockets. But I heard a funny thing that there's no matter how many horses you get together, they're never going to get up into space. Never going to get up into space. And so that's one of those things that I always remember when we're faced with a challenge, when we're faced with a difficulty. I'm like, horses and cars, horse poop. You know, that we are not going to be drowning in horse poop. Could you imagine the coronavirus and horse poop? Oh my God, what would we be dealing with that? No, okay, all right. But even so, I was walking through the week thinking about all of this, and all of these different stories kept coming to me about how out of necessity and need, creative solutions are always there. And my husband and I were watching one of those late night shows the other night, and I heard a comedian who I'd never heard of before, who was telling the story about when she doesn't have kids, she has dogs. And she was saying how, you know, when you just have dogs, sometimes what happens is that stuff happens and you need to go to the vet in the middle of the night. And so she was at the emergency vet at the middle of the night, and she was sitting there, and a woman came in with a dog who had been hit by a car. It was a really bad situation. Blood everywhere, the dog was in great pain. And this big male vet comes over to get the dog, and it growled at her. And she said, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. She really doesn't like men." And he was like, and the comedian made a really funny joke about that, but I'm not going to do that. She said, so the vet looked, and he didn't miss a beat. He went behind the welcome area, and he got a really long blonde wig, and he put it on. And he came back and he got the dog, and the dog went with him. And so they were there for 2 hours, and 2 hours later the dog comes back out with little casts on 2 of its legs, all put together, all fine, sedated, everything was fine, the dog was going to be okay, and the vet was still in the blonde wig, right? Creativity always wins. Creative thinking always wins. And so when we're faced with something, whether it's what we're talking about in the world right now or something in your individual life, we need to open up to the idea that creativity is the way. This is a spiritual truth. This is what is going to heal us and support us and allow us to live full, fulfilling lives. You are the artist of your life. And the life that you create is the gift that you give to us, to the world, and back to God. Just like the Mona Lisa was the gift, just like Romeo and Juliet was Shakespeare's gift, your life is your gift. It does not need to be artistic. It needs to be creative. And you are creative. And so this month what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about ways of opening those channels of listening and seeing creativity unfolding. Our theme for the year is perfect spiritual vision. So this week I'm going to invite you to walk around and see how creativity is showing up in new ways. Because when you can see it, then you can match it energetically. And when you match something energetically, then you welcome the energy into your space. And then all of a sudden your dreams are going to be filled with possibility. And your life, you're going to see new opportunities, and inspiration is going to hit you in different creative ways. In our book of the month, Matthew Fox says, creativity and imagination are not frosting on a cake. They're integral to our sustainability. They are survival mechanisms. They are the essence of who we are. They constitute our deepest empowerment. And so when we practice creativity as our spiritual practice, we are open to welcoming more love, more light, more peace, more joy, because we're welcoming more God, and that's why we're here. And so it is.